These are the notes for lesson 2-5, solving equations with absolute value. Yesterday, we discussed the fact that the absolute value makes things positive. So you get something like the absolute value of 2 equals 2, and the absolute value of -2 also equals 2. Today, we're going to be solving instead. So you'll get something like the absolute value of some number equals 2. And if the absolute value of a number equals 2, then that number, hopefully, obviously, could be 2. So again, if you look above with the 2's that we had before, this 2 could be n. Or there's a second option. This n value could be inside of here, the opposite of n. Or the opposite of n could equal 2, which means that n equals -2. So your answers are 2 and -2. So we are going to do that with a more complicated problem. So example number 1, n plus 7 equals 5. You could solve just n plus 7 equals 5, or the opposite of that, the opposite of n plus 7 equals 5. You have to solve both problems because there are two answers. So working on the left, to get the n by itself, you would subtract 7, and you get that n equals -2. Working on the right, there's an extra step. You distribute the negative sign. Then to get n by itself, you need to add 7. And then finally, divide by -1. So n equals -12. So your solution set is -2, -12. And just like before, fancy brackets are nice, but if you cannot make the fancy brackets, do the best you can, throw some squiggles down. So -2 and -12 are the answers. Okay, let's try this again. Example number 2. The absolute value of b plus 4 equals 2. Again, you solve the problem that you see. b plus 4 equals 2. You also solve the opposite of that problem, equals 2. So let's again begin working on the left. To get b by itself on the left-hand side, you subtract 4. And we get that b equals -2. And again, on the right one, the opposite one, distribute your negative. To solve for b, you add the 4, because that is the opposite sign now. 2 plus 4 is 6. And if -b is 6, then b must equal -6. And then you get to write your answer in a fancy solution set. So b equals -2 or -6. So let's try example 3. Write down the problem, the absolute value of 3z minus 3 equals 9. And once you've written down the problem, write down the 2 problems that you need to solve. So you're going to rewrite the original problem, write the word or, and then write the opposite problem out. So the original problem that you need to solve is 3z minus 3 equals 9. And you also need to solve the opposite problem. So the opposite of 3z minus 3 equals 9. If you would solve the left-hand side now, get z by itself. The first step should be to add 3 to make that term go away. And then to solve for z, you would divide by 3. And that gives you that z equals 4. For the other side, take a moment and try, please. Don't forget the first step is to distribute the negative sign. So hopefully you distributed your negative sign, which gave you negative 3z plus 3 equals 9. To solve for z, you would subtract 3 to get rid of that term. And then to finish solving for z, you would divide by negative 3. And z equals negative 2. Again, write your 2 answers in a solution set. So z equals 4. Z also equals negative 2. All right, number 4. Don't do it yet. Just write down the problem and stop. The absolute value of 4n minus 1 equals negative 6. Remember what absolute value means. The absolute value makes the insides positive. Can an absolute value equal a negative number? No. The absolute value cannot equal a negative number. So the absolute value of 4n minus 1 cannot equal negative 6. This has no solution. This isn't possible. So if I gave you something like the absolute value of 5h plus 2 equals negative 8, you should immediately recognize absolute value cannot. So if I gave you something like the absolute value of 5h plus 2 equals -8, you should automatically notice that the absolute value is trying to equal a negative number, and this cannot happen. Therefore, there is no solution. So in your notes, please turn to page 104, do problems 2A and 2B. If you don't have your book on you, these problems are also on the rest of this School Formative page. Do them in your notes and also online. Thank you.